Hello, I'm Professor Seong-Heui Kim from the Department of Nursing at Daejeon University. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present at this conference. The title of my paper is Reconstructing Identity Through the Climacteric Transition, an ethnography of married women in Korea. From now on, let me present my article. The presentation order is as follows. First, introduction. Climacteric denotes the several transitional years surrounding menopause, understood as a prolonged turning point in a woman's life. With the global increase in women's life expectancy, many now live more than one-third of their rivals after menopause, making this transitional stage highly significant for their overall health and quality of life. The climacteric is regarded as a period in which women's identities are especially subject to reorganization. Such identity transformation of women undergoing the climacteric transition extends beyond physiological changes, encompassing a complex process in which self-perception and social roles are reshaped within personal, social, and cultural contexts. The identity reconstruction of married women experience the climacteric is a process of redefining the self and adapting to new circumstances and environments. This process not only plays a critical role in their adjustment during the transitional period, but also serves as a key factor in shaping their overall attitudes and experiences in life after climacteric. Identity transformation in women extends beyond the individual dimension, being shaped by social cultural barriers, family structures, and perceptions of gender roles within their cultural group, as well as through broader social context and interpersonal relationships. Domestic and international studies on climacteric have primarily focused on quantitative, medically oriented research based on pre- and post-menopausal symptoms and related diseases. There remains a critical gap in comprehensively exploring how married women experience climacteric as a transformative life transition, particularly in terms of identity reconstruction within their social-cultural context. In the context of Korea, which has rapidly undergone social-cultural change and entered into a developed society, exploring how women experiencing the climacteric reconstruct their identity and interpreting the meaning of this lived experience holds significant implications not only for improving the quality of life of individual women, but also for the well-being of families and society at large. Interventions for women in the climacteric stage must reflect individual characteristics and cultural sensitivities, taking into account the social cultural beliefs and practices related to menopause. Therefore, in order to understand the menopause identity of married women in Korea, it is essential to focus on the cultural context of their society and to identify the cultural patterns of experience that they share in everyday life. This study employs an ethnographic approach to explore the cultural patterns of identity reconstruction shared by married women seeing the climacteric within the cultural context of Korean society and to analyze the meanings of these experiences. The research question guiding this study is how to married women in Korea experience identity transformation during the climacteric. Second, research method. The participants of this study were married women undergoing the climacteric. Participants were selected using maximum variation purposive sampling. Data saturation was reached with a total of 11 participants. The data collection and analysis for this study follows readily ethnographic research method. Data collection was concluded at the point of saturation when no new themes emerged and information became repetitive through field-based techniques such as participant observation and informal in-depth interviews. Data analysis was conducted using spread ethnographic analysis method. In order to ensure the validity and truthworthiness of the study, the evaluation criteria proposed by Lincoln and Guba, credibility, transferability, dependability, and conformability were applied. The research explained the purpose of the study, the research procedure, potential problems arising from participation, confidentiality of interview, content and data, and the participants voluntarily withdrawing or refusing to participate. The research obtained written informed consent from each participant after providing a full explanation of the study and ensuring that they fully understood its content. Third, result. As a result of examining the cultural patterns and meaning of identity reconstruction shared by married women in Korea experiencing the climacteric, the cultural theme of building the second act of life with oneself at the center was identified. Based on this theme, 3 categories and 12 properties were derived. The category identified were organizing interpersonal relationships, rediscovering myself as an individual, and expectations and plans for a better future, each of which encompasses the following properties. Have one meaning structure of identity reconstruction among married women in the climacteric. Cultural theme, 3 categories, 12 properties. The category of reorganizing interpersonal relations encompassed the properties of diminished presence of the husband, breaking away from the confinement of motherhood, redefining boundaries with extended family, and strengthening friendship. These finds demonstrate that middle-aged women experiencing the climacteric pursue and reorganize changes in their roles with interpersonal relationships, either by weakening or reinforcing connections with the spouses, children, colleagues, and extended family members. The property of diminished presence of the husband reflects the experiences of married women undergoing climacteric, in which their relationships with their husband are reorganized due to changes in sexual life, weakened emotional bonds, and altered daily living patterns with their spouses. The property of breaking away from the confinement of motherhood reflects how during climacteric, women begin to distance themselves from child rearing and child-centered life, seeking instead to live as independent individuals while redefining boundaries with their children. The property of redefining boundaries with extended family reflects how married women experiencing physical and psychological changes due to menopause seek to maintain and regulate their relationships with relatives within the limits of their own capacity. The property of strengthening friendship represented the most actively pursued and emphasized changes within the category of relationship reorganization among menopausal women. The category of rediscovering myself as an individual included the properties of reflecting one's life, investing in oneself, engaging in new related activities, and efforts to reaffirm femininity. These properties illustrate how women, having long been constrained by family-centered responsibilities, begin to place greater value on self-reflection, self-care, and personal fulfillment. The property of reflecting one's life captures the process by which women, having long prioritized the familial duties and responsibilities, begins to reassess their lives and current conditions. The property of investing in oneself highlights participants' shift away from a lifestyle of suppressing their own desires and sacrificing for their families toward prioritizing their own time, health, and needs and investing in themselves. The property of engaging in new activities illustrates how participants, through insight into their current circumstances, sought to actively engage in wage activities as a means of overcoming the changes and challenges of menopause. The property of efforts to reaffirm femininity illustrates a cultural pattern in which women in the climacteric, despite experiencing diminished self-esteem due to physical changes, do not remain in a state of withdrawal or shame. The category of anticipating and designing a better future encompasses the properties of a thriving economic independence, focusing on health management, finding new social laws and pursuing self-development, and seeking support from others. This property reveals that women perceive menopause not merely as a stage of loss, but as a critical opportunity for growth and renewal, pursuing independence, well-being, and expanded social participation while mobilizing supportive networks. The property of thriving economic independence illustrates how menopausal women, driven by fears of financial insecurity in later life and independence of family, actively pursue economic independence. The property of focusing on health management demonstrates how menopausal women, prompted by anxieties about aging and physical decline, come to regard health as the highest priority in life and actively engage in self-care practices. The property of finding new social law and pursuing self-development illustrates how menopausal women actively engage in social activities and self-development in order to reduce feeling of isolation and broaden the meaning of their lives. The property of seeking support from others illustrates that menopausal women perceive support from family, spouses, workplaces, and the community as a crucial resource in overcoming physical and psychological changes. Discussion and conclusion. This study employed an ethnography research method to explore the cultural patterns and meaning of identity transformation among married women experiencing climacteric within the social-cultural context of Korea. The findings revealed that the overarching cultural theme that emerged was building the second act of life with oneself at the center. This theme illustrates how women through the climacteric transition shift away from family-centered and other-oriented patterns of life toward reconstructing their priority around the self and redefining the meaning of life. It also highlights a positive cultural reframing of menopause, not as a mere biological change or a loss, but as the starting point of new self-care and identity construction. Based on the result of this study, the following suggestions are proposed. First, there is a need to foster social cultural environments that support identity recovery for climacteric women. Social recognition should move beyond viewing climacteric as a stage of decline and instead embrace it as a period of maturity and autonomy. Developing community-based programs and self-care workshops specifically tailored for the climacteric woman could serve this purpose. Second, a strong balance must be established between identity reconstruction and social recognition. Woman identity should not be confined to reproductive capacity or physical appearance, but reinforced through autonomy and self-realization. To achieve this, policy, educational, and media approaches need to be integrated. Third, the expansion of a cultural empathy within families and workplaces is essential. Educational and counseling interventions should be provided to enhance understanding of the often visible symptoms of the climacteric and to promote emotional support among family members. With this, I finished my presentation. If you have any question, please email me at this address. Thank you for your attention.